Live. How come I don't see my stream? Oh, here we go. It's just taking a second. All right, let me just check the audio levels. Yeah, audio is good. All right, welcome everybody. I will be keeping an eye on the thread on the side, so feel free to interact with me with questions. What we're going to be doing today, I get this a lot. A lot of people ask me to help, where do I start? How do I use AI? How do I use it to write code? I'm going to take some working code, an AI agent that's a LangChain, and I'm going to be trying to use a new approach, a LangGraph. Now to do this, I'm going to use ChatGPT to help me refactor the code. Now I'm going to use working examples and say, here's some code that works. Here's some code I want to make work like that. And I'm going to try to incorporate it into my working project. I'm going to show you all the tools and all my prompts, and I'm going to lay this bare. Now, I was a little bit, hey, thanks, Stephen. Thanks. Yeah, happy haircut. There was no fire or anything. It was just time to clean up a little bit. So let's go ahead and start sharing the screen. And I'm going to level set where I am. And there's going to be a little bit of a... Okay, so let me just finish sharing this stream now that it's live to some social networks. If you'd just bear with me here. Thanks, Stephen. I'm just going to take that. Yeah, happy haircut. And finish up some prompts here. There we go. There we go. And there we go. Okay. So, all right. So what are we doing today? So we're going to start a whole new prompt here in ChatGPT. And I'm going to actually start a new Git branch. So this is GitHub. I'm going to go to my repositories and my space graph repository. Now I'll show you this works in the working state. But before I do anything, I want to protect my working code. All right, I'm going to be modifying things, and I know that main branch right now is healthy and working. So we're going to make a new branch called APOD, standing for the Astronomy Photo of the Day. The next thing I'm going to do is go to my IDE, which is VS Code. Now VS Code has the terminal up here, which is Ubuntu. So this is Ubuntu here inside of Windows Subsystem for Linux. Okay, now I've built a Docker solution. Before we do anything else, let's look at the Docker components. Okay, so Docker has a Docker file inside of a folder called Docker. Here, I'm starting with Python 3.12 Slim with a work directory, and then I do my package installation. So this addresses why I do Docker to begin with. When I started making code and sharing code, there was a lot of friction, let's call it, with the virtual environment. You've got to set up a virtual environment. It's different on Windows, it's different on Mac, it's different on Linux. Then you've got to pip install these packages, and over time the packages change versions, and there's just a lot of friction there. So instead, I'm going to make a container, a Docker container, and I'm going to have it with Python 3.12 and then pip install these packages. I'm going to copy all of my code and my startup script, and I'm going to run a command that is the startup script. Now my startup script is a bash script, born again shell. And I'm just echoing out that we're starting this container, change into the directory, and I'm running LangGraph dev, and I'm exposing the port here because it's the container. So I want to be able to reference this on my local host, so all the links work and everything. So I need to expose the port here in my startup script. Okay. The next thing I have is the Docker compose. So I can say Docker compose up -- build to build it fresh. and it's going to go ahead and build that container for me and start it up. So this is the logs from the container, and you can see it provides a REST API, and it also provides documentation, and it also provides the studio link in LangSmith. And I think in LangSmith this link is actually broken. Let me just update that. So this is my LangSmith. Now, the whole point of this today is to add a new node. So I have an astronauts in space node, an ISS locator node, and a weather node. The weather node can come from the ISS location or right from the parent router node. These nodes, the router node and the natural language node, use ChatGPT to take the user's input, decide where to send it, and then interpret the output in natural language out to the user. All right? And this all works, and I don't need to prove it works. We're going to move ahead. The other thing is that we've done, if I open this in a new tab, I've incorporated tracing. So I have added my LangSmith keys, and a little bit, you can watch the video, I just posted it this morning, and we're going to have trace level information so we can actually trace our calls and the API responses and the token limitations and all that stuff. Right, so if I go to my dashboard here for space graphs, we can see the total cost, the latency, and error rate. We can add other graphs to this later. But we'll just keep this in mind. And I'm just going to go to space graph, and we'll make this the last hour. And let's just monitor for the last hour. Now I haven't made any calls, so that's empty. Okay, so now let's get to the code. I've made my branch. So we're going to do a get fetch. We're going to bring this down. And we're going to do a get fetch to get the latest branch. And we're going to change our code into LangSmith to APOD. Okay, so here's what I expect. We're going to make a new file here called APOD node.py. And let me crank the zoom up for everybody. Excuse me, I should have done that sooner. Okay, the zoom's cranked right up. So we're going to make an APOD node like our other nodes. And then we're going to incorporate it into our router node and our natural language answer node. But more importantly, our graph. So here's our graph right now where we add our nodes. We set up some routing. We have our entry point and our finish point and a couple of conditional nodes. Okay, so what we want to do is incorporate the astronomy photo of the day into this project. Now, I know you're not going to have code, but if you find code out there that you want to use, here's how I recommend you refactor that code. And we're going to get ChatGPT involved here. So here's my APOD code from a different project, and I just want to show you the difference here. There's a bunch of stuff in here about tools and the LLM, and it's 160 lines of code. If I show you a similar agent as a node, it's only like 30 or 40 lines of code. Okay, so that's really what I'm trying to achieve here, is a higher level of abstraction, as well as incorporating this as a node in my new LangGraph, as opposed to a standalone LangChain. You can see all my tools here are LangChain tools, as opposed to LangGraph tools. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this code and go into ChatGPT and say, hello, I have this working AI agent that uses LangChain, and I would like to refactor it to incorporate it into my new LangGraph. Here is the existing LangChain code. I'm going to paste in the code. And now I'm going to say, and here is a sample of a node in my LangGraph that I want to refactor the above code into this new format. Okay, and I'll give them 2 examples of the new format. And I'm all done with this here. I don't need that anymore. Okay, so I'm going to give them the astronauts in space. For example, here is an Astros in space node and an IS location node. And we'll give it the location node. And we're going to say, and I want to add it to this graph. And we're going to grab our graph. There is more to come, but please let's start with the APOD node.py file. Okay, so it has lots of context here. It has my existing code, some examples of what I want it to look like, the graph I'm going to incorporate it into, and some instructions from me. Okay, so here's the refactored APOD node file integrated into your LangGraph structure while maintaining your Langsmith tracing, structured state updates, and clean logging. This follows the pattern of your existing Astros in space and IS locator nodes. So we're going to look at the code as it goes here. So we're bringing in the Langsmith traceable so it can trace the function. We're setting the default route path to the astronomy photo of the day. It's going to get my key here from my... So I'll look at the key information. Let me see what my... I may have to stop sharing my screen real quick to switch over to look at these keys. Give me 1 second here. Let me just switch here. Okay, give me 2 seconds here. I just have to look up if I have the... Yeah, it's literally called... Okay. And what's it called there? Okay, all right. All good. Okay, so where did that go? So here's the astronomy photo of the day node. A couple of retries, extract the data for the state, and then move on to the next agent, which is the natural language answer node. Okay, so we're going to copy this, and we're going to paste it in here. Now, what I've learned is the first thing that we do next is to update the state. Okay, and I don't need this extra demo key. I already have a key. All right, so I want to update my state here. Okay, I'm going to say, here is my current state.py file. Can you add a new state for the APOD agent? Any questions so far? Anybody got anything out there? Thanks for joining. Let me know where you're coming from. Be happy to say hi and give you a shout out. So now it's going to add hopefully a new class for the APOD, right? And it knows what to extract, the media, the URL, all this stuff. And then it's going to add the APOD to my state class. Okay, so that makes sense. I'm going to update our class. And the next thing we're going to do is update our front and back end. Do I still have this up? So remember, I have a router node here that takes in the human language, right? And the human language in this case might be, what can you tell me about the photo of the day? Then on a exit, my exit node is natural language as well, right? So we're going to go to our router node, and we're going to say, thank you. Here is the router node at the front end, and we add to the template how to respond to questions about the astronomy photo of the day. Okay, now we're going to give it that file. And what I'm expecting is not much. I'm going to expect a little bit different prompt here. I don't expect much of the logic to change, but it's going to have to handle now the astronomy photo of the day routing. See, it's added the APOD node here. Call the APOD node if the user asks about the photo of the day. And now it's going to grab some of the state extraction from the node that it called and then set the next node appropriately. Hey Adam, thanks for joining. I am watching the stream here, so if you have anything, just pop it up into the prompt here. So we're going to go ahead and this is the router node code. And again, it didn't change much. It changed the prompt a little bit, which is fine. Okay, so the next thing is going to be the output, right? We're going to say thanks, and at the opposite end of the flow, we have the NLP. Please provide the update to reflect the APOD. Okay, so we're moving through our files, and then I'm going to show you one way what I like to do before we're all done here. We're not even close to being done, but we are. This is moving along really nicely. So this is going to be the natural language answer. Again, we're just going to extract some keys from APOD if APOD was in the title and the data, and the rest of the handling of the natural language output here as our exit node. So this, in terms of visualization, oh, it's down because the server's down. We're working on the exit node now. So once the little mini agents, Y40. Well, I have a ChatGPT account. I've had it for almost 3 years now. So it's primarily my LLM of choice. I've heard Claude is doing very well with code. And Gemini is very good. I also could use Ollama and a local model, although they don't work as well with the tool calling. But I use it just as a path of least resistance, to be honest with you. It does very well. I don't have any complaints about ChatGPT. So we're moving from 108 lines to 128 lines in this file. Now the last thing we're going to work in is the actual graph. So now I have to say, thank you so much. Here, finally, here is my graph code. Can we incorporate the APOD into the graph? O3, it depends. O3 is slow. So up here in the corner, why don't I use some of these other codes? O1 is really slow. O3 mini isn't bad. It's a good mix. ChatGPT 4.0 is a chain of thought model, whereas the O models are kind of reasoning models. And I'm not really doing any, like, I guess I could pick this mini high, which is great at coding and logic. But honestly, for the cost, for what it costs me to use it, 4.0 is fine. I did try 4.5, but I've run out. I have a limit that's got to reset in a few days. I didn't find any extremely dramatic improvement over 4.0. Okay, so now it's going to bring in, right, insert the new APOD node at the top, right? That makes sense. Add the APOD node to the graph. I'm not sure if it needed to update the routing functions. And we should have a new conditional APOD edge here. We do. And the finishing point's the same. Okay, so this all looks very good. We're going to take that. No, hang on. I want to make sure I'm in the right file here. So not too many more lines of code. 10 more lines of code to incorporate into the graph. Okay, so this makes sense, right? Now, if I go to my get differentials here, this makes a lot of sense to me, right? I didn't change my weather. I didn't change any of my existing edge nodes. I changed my front end router to have, right, this new line in the template and this new response. So not much there that's changed. And then on my back end, again, not much has changed there. Just handling the new agent's data. My state has a new class and an optional string here to store the state information. Well, if we're going to find out about the debugging, it's a good question. We're going to try to run this and see how much debugging we have to actually do. Probably not much. This all looks pretty good. So then the APOD node itself, this is the brand new agent file, which is only 59 lines of code. Again, remember the first file at the start of the stream, it was over just as a reference point. The whole idea was to take this file from my Space Ace code, the APOD file, which has tools and a bunch of code, and it's 160 lines of code. Still not a lot of code. And move it into this new node format, which is only 59 lines of code. So, and then the graph, right? The new node, add the node, valid next steps, add the node, add the conditional edge, and away we go. So I'm not going to commit this until I know it works, right? For those following along in terms of development. This is the get differential in this branch, and it's still local here to me. I haven't pushed this code up to GitHub or anything yet, and we'll get to that. But let's make sure this code works. Okay, so drum roll, please. So we're going to do Docker down, make sure it's down. We're going to bring up build. And here we go. So do I have a new node? I do. Here's the APOD node over here on the side. So we have the ISS locator node, we have the weather node that can come from ISS or weather. I'd like to break this link between the router node and the end. So maybe that's something we can clean up. What are you doing? Hey, MK, I'm refactoring code if you're just catching up. This APOD node is brand new from some older code of mine. And I'm just showing people in general how I use ChatGPT to refactor my code. There's a lot of people interested in how how someone like me is writing code with ChatGPT. One of my mentors thought it was really interesting. I'm going to come back to this, but I want to break the line between the router node and end. Unless maybe it's there as a default, if we don't find a route that it can exit. Let's revisit that. Let's do one thing at a time. So we have the new APOD node here. And our graph, if I go to runs here in the last hour, we don't have any runs in terms of our monitoring. And in terms of our logs, everything came up clean. Tracing enabled, registered with LangGraph, our links here, everything is up and running. The visualization tool, this is okay, so a couple things here. This is LangSmith, So smith.langchain.com, which is your portal, which gives you access to traces, and this is the trace dashboard. This is the LangSmith Studio, which is an extension of the LangGraph platform. I should say LangGraph Studio, excuse me, not LangSmith Studio. So there's a lot of Lang stuff going on, but actually you're going to watch this. So if I bring up input, I could actually go directly to my photos of the day here. You can see that it's optional and what's required. So the user input is required, and we can minimize this once we get going, and you'll actually see it work its way through the graph. On the right over here is our threads, and we're going to see the thread in action here. So since it's the photo of the day, that's what we're trying to troubleshoot here. Actually, let me show you a thread that works, right? I'm going to say, how is the weather in London? And we're going to hit send. Now watch what happens here. It hits the router node, hits the weather node, hits the natural language node, and now we have this turn one inside of this thread. Okay, so we have a thread. Hey Arthur, thanks for joining. Awesome. So we have this thread, how is the weather in London, and we get the natural language answer. We can see that it goes from start to my router node to my weather node, and we can actually, if you watch the visualization, you can see it moving along here. And then my natural language node. So right now in London, the weather currently is sunny with a comfortable temperature of 19.2 Celsius that matches how it feels. Humidity making it quite pleasant, gentle breeze adding to the delightful day. Pretty cool, right? All in just a few seconds. So now let's try the APOD node. Before I move on, I want to go to LangSmith. So here is my tracing, right? That cost me 0.01385 cents for 366 tokens, 3 seconds, 3.09 seconds, which it marks as yellow, not green. And the output, right, is just London here, but there's the full answer there. We can actually go to a waterfall view and see how long each of these functions is actually taking, which is pretty cool, right, for troubleshooting or visibility. And if I click on OpenAI here, right, there's the information on both ends. And then my individual weather node doing the API call, right? If I go to the monitoring, we can see sort of the relative graphs. Okay? So we're a little off track here. I'm just bringing everyone up to speed. Let's go back and try to get this APOD node working. Okay, so we're going to do a new thread. And we're going to say, what can you tell me about the astronomy photo of the day? Please add your enhanced thoughts. Something like this. Submit. So now it should hit the router node, hit the APOD node, natural language node. So in terms of Adam, like troubleshooting, this all worked. We did this in just like, since the stream started, how long have we been going, right? With me explaining everything. So this is how I'm able to rapidly get solutions going, is because I'm using ChatGPT to guide my code and to take working code and make it my own. So if we go back into Spacecraft, here is what can you tell me about the photo of the day in terms of a chain, right? We can see the calls to the different functions. Here's the final answer and a link to the photo of the day, right? And this is the description from the photo of the day. So this is the description, the raw description, and the title of the image and the link to the image. And then this is what I asked it to augment it. What can you tell me about it, kind of thing, right? And we have the visualization working. So, like, I'm really happy with this. We were able to do this in just a few minutes together. We've added the APOD node together. This was really fast. There are other NASA APIs. If anyone's interested, I'd be happy to add another API from scratch. So let's do that. So originally, I had the astronomy photo of the day code as a React agent using LangChain. Okay, so this is that code, 160 lines of code. And this worked very well. It worked perfectly. Now the new code is a node in my LangGraph is 59 lines of code. Okay? Plus the additional little bit of code in my graphing. So abstracted, extremely highly abstracted. So what do we do next? We finish our Git work, and we're going to say working APOD tested live. Commit, sync the changes. And now I'm going to go into GitHub again. Somebody's printing something, so that's why you hear the printer. And we're going to go into our repository, and we should get an alert that there was a pull request, right? So APOD has recent pushes, compare and pull request. We're going to say added the astronomy photo of the day from Space Ace as a node in Space Graph. Create our pull request. It's going to make sure there's no merge issues. Merge the pull request, commit the merge, and then go ahead and delete the branch. So what we're going to do next is maybe find something about Mars. I don't know. Or what, right? We can do something different. So NASA REST APIs. And here's their open APIs. And we can just find one that I don't have yet. So we just did the astronomy photo of the day. No, that's not that one. There might be something about. So here's the Mars rover photos, or even the how about the near Earth objects? I think there's something about near Earth object tracking. Yeah, near Earth object web service. Okay, so let's maybe try to add this. And here's the example query, and here's the lookup. So what I'm literally going to do is go back here and say everything worked perfectly. I found another API I would like to add, and we're going to call this neo node.py for the near Earth objects REST API. Right? Now this is going to be different because I don't have any existing code, right? What I do have is an API reference. Here is the REST API reference from NASA. Okay, so you can do this with anything. We're going to take this and copy that and say, could we make a node like we did for the APOD or ISS. Here as a reminder, it's the working node code for APOD, and we're just going to refresh its cycle here of memory. Oh, and hang on a second, I'm just ahead of myself here. Let's make a branch for this. Just about ahead of myself here, and we'll call this neo. Create a branch, and we're going to do a get fetch and change branches to neo. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we want to show it the APOD code that it just helped us with, and the ISS locator. First, let's make the new neo node.py file. Then we can do the state and graph and prompt templates. Okay, everyone following along? Oh, no problem, Adam, yeah. So again, this is right from this API spec, all right? And here's what it's going to do. Fetch the asteroids near Earth based on today's date, retry up to 3 times, log the calls, store asteroid details in the state for LangGraph to process, route results to the natural language node for final formatting. It's exactly what we want, okay? So we're going to let this finish generating. And we're going to review it as we go here. So, right, there's the URL. There's our Langsmith tracing. Here's our traceable, our neo node, where we get our key, set the date, try this 3 times, or 5 times, yeah, 3 times with a bit of a timeout, extract the data, pass it to the state. Okay, makes sense to me. So we're going to do a new file here called neonode.py. Paste that in. And the next thing is going to be probably the state file. Next steps, yeah, state, right? So we're going to go to state. Here is my current state file. And we add the neo to the state. So we're going to have a new one in here, asteroid class. And it's going to add, okay, so here we go, asteroid and neo data. And neo data has asteroids. Ooh, neat. So list of asteroids under the neo data, and then the individual per asteroid. That's kind of cool. I like that. All right, so we're going to take that and update our state file. The next thing is the front end and then back end routing. So we're going to say, thank you. Now here is the front end routing. We need to update for Neo. And thanks for joining, everyone. We've got more than 10 people watching now, which is really cool. Make sure you say hi and tell me where you're coming in from and if you have any questions. Cursor IDE. No, I haven't, Michael. Thank you, though. I will look into Cursor IDE. I'm just the hugest VS Code stan you'll ever meet. I love VS Code and some of the things it can do. For example, like this Docker container that we're running here, we can look at it right in VS Code here. Right, so here's the space graph and all the information here, my .env file, all my code. So I can connect directly to Docker through that. I'm not sure if Cursor can do that or not, but maybe it can. Okay, so let's do the router node. Copy that. And we're going to update the router node here. Now it's going from 91 lines to 97. Again, not a huge update, just the template. Now the answer, right? Thank you. Now the back end NLP node. Update for Neo. Now, if you're network people, right? Some of my people are networking people. Look up your REST API of choice, right? ICE has APIs, DNA Center, Juniper, Arista, firewalls, everything. Everything's got an API today, easily interfaced with this exact approach, right? So this is going to be the back-end routing, and I don't expect much of a change. It's just going to handle the Neo data now. And right, so here's the Neo data. Yeah, we'll just let this finish up. And we're really close. We'll have a new node in a second. The last thing is going to be to update the graph code. So let's go ahead and, well, just wait. I'll just wait. So again, for anyone who's just joining, we just added the APOD node from existing code. This node we're adding is literally from copy and pasting the API example here from the NASA guide. And we're going to hopefully have in a few minutes, not just an APOD node, but a near Earth object node. Oh, Michael, that sounds cool. Very cool. Thanks for that, and I appreciate the heads up on that. Good looking out, man. Okay, so that's the natural language model answer. It's away from 128 to, 150. And then finally, it's going to be our graph. I'm going to say thank you. And finally, we need the graph. Now, another thing that maybe didn't come up yet is I could be using Copilot for this and do this all within VS Code via the Copilot with GitHub Copilot or Microsoft Copilot and use, placeholders and explain what I want. I happen to just use ChatGPT in this way. But yes, I could do this with a Copilot too, if that's kind of in the back of your mind. So we've added the new node for Neo, and we've added it to the routing function here, Neo. And then I want to see if I need to go from router to end. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me unless it's in case router can't find something to route to. Oh, Michael, that means a lot to me. Thank you, man. Thank you for joining and the kind words. I'm glad to hear that the videos are helping. That's awesome. I can't, get enough of this stuff, and to find this new studio and to write these agents in just 30 lines of Python, like it's really remarkable stuff. So is this done? So there's our new graph, and it's not going to get much bigger. 133 to 150, okay. And let's look at our Git. So we have the new update to the template there, the new update there, the whole new node file, our graphs, and our state. Okay, all right, let's try to bring it up. Let me just close all this stuff. Now, remember, don't get caught by the Docker trap. Make sure you bring it down, and make sure you have the -- build. Just for anyone who's not super handy with Docker or getting going with Docker. If you forget the -- build, it would have not incorporated any of that new code. And then you're stuck going, hang on, like, why isn't it working? It's because you're not running it. Okay, so we're going to refresh our studio here because it's a new container. And we're going to, do I have a Neo? So this is a good sign that Neo is here as an optional. And now we have the Neo APOD weather locator space node. All right. So we can do near Earth objects now, I think. And that stupid line is still there. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's try a near Earth object question. How close is the nearest object in space right now? Submit. Now it should go to the Neo node, and it did. And now it's in the natural language. Hey, check it out. Like, we just did this. So on March 9th, 3 near-Earth asteroids will make their close approach to our planet. No need for concern, and none of them pose a threat. The largest of the trio is an impressive, right? So we just did that from this. We took this and we used ChatGPT to make a new node in the LangGraph here, right? And if we go to our tracing and go back to our project here in the tracing, right, there's the latency and there's the cost and the number of tokens. And we can look at the waterfall through the API calls. Celebrating, right? Isn't that cool that we just did that? Like, I feel like checking out, okay, like, is this one just as easy? I want to see if there's like another simple one here. Um, maybe that one, the weather on Mars. Mars photos. Anyhow, I should wrap things up. I'm just seeing if there's any really low-hanging fruit here. Let's go back up to that Mars one. Insight weather service on Mars. Does this take... Okay, demo key. I don't think it's demo key. Weather insight. Okay. Does anyone want to do this one? Add it to the space, right? We can ask what's the weather like on Mars. Something like that. Okay, so let's patch this in. Working Neo. Near Earth objects working and tested live. And this one's called Mars Weather Service. So weather on Mars. Oh, wow. Oh, wow, that's awesome. I'd love to. We should do something together, Michael. We should do a podcast or record something around that work. That sounds really exciting about the Netbox fork. Very cool. So we're going to go weather on Mars. We're going to switch to weather on Mars here. And we're going to do the same thing again. So first we're going to say, you are awesome. Thank you so much. The Neo project worked. Are you ready to add another node together? You got to beef it up. You got to let it know. Michael, that sounds awesome. What device do I need to replace? Did you build that with, I'd be curious to know what AI you're using or what you're approved to use for your LLM for that code. That's exciting. I'd love to. Yeah, please reach out on LinkedIn, Michael. I'd love that. I'd love that. All right, so what we're going to do is literally take this is all it gives us. I could go to this document too. Let's take a look at that one. All right, so I want to add weather on Mars. I mean, I don't know how much of this it needs. Let's just give it the table, yeah, not the appendix. Yeah, it really does. It is a fine art. All right, so we're going to paste that in. The split response. I hate when it does this. I know it's trying to make it better and give you the two different answers, but I just give me one answer. And maybe I should have in my prompt here. Well, that's a lot of puke there. I'm gonna just let this respond here. Yeah, I've broken this chain, haven't I? Something went wrong. Yeah, this session might be broken. All right, so that's a pitfall. You can tell it not to split. Yeah, and this whole thing is broken now. That sucks because I had a pretty good chain of thought going here. I give it too much data or it's really thinking. Well, let's do a new one. And let's not give it all that. Let's just give it this. I really want to salvage that chain though. Okay, there we go. Let's see if I can break it. There we go, okay. Here we go, Mars weather node. So it's going to start, it knows which file to give me first, which is going to be the weather node, right? Follows the same structured approach as previous nodes. This is going to be neat to get the weather on Mars. Now the only thing is that I have the weather node. So I hope it doesn't screw that one up or mix it up. My user router prompt. So I got to be very clear in my templating to suggest only call the weather on Mars agent if the user asks about Mars. Something to that effect. We're all done with that. Okay, so let me bring down the service. Weather on Mars node.py. Mars weather node. Okay, I want to make sure I call it the same thing they do. And then what's next? See it even like it's so smart. It knows the next thing is going to be the state. Right here, update state, update your graph, update your routers. Right, so here is my current state file. I think the next thing I might try with this is to swap it out for something like Llama 3.1 with Ollama and get away from the ChatGPT dependency and then just run Ollama as a container alongside of this in my Docker build. I don't know. It would be an experimentation to see what open source models Cohere or DeepSeek or Ollama or Llama 3, excuse me, Gemma. There's lots to choose from. See if any of those can run this workflow. Because as you see, the LLM is just modular, right? You can just swap it out. So I may try it with Ollama locally soon. That won't be today, though. Okay, so there's our state. And now the three other files. The router node And I'm going to say, here is the router node. I need you to pay particular attention to this node, as we don't want the router to confuse questions about Earth's weather. How is the weather in Toronto? Or the ISS plus weather. Where is the ISS and how is the weather there right now? And the Mars AI agent. How is the weather on Mars right now? Right? Yeah, I'm going to have to switch to cursor. That sounds pretty enticing, Michael. Thank you. So we're going to get the router node update. Now, in addition to the Olama stuff for this particular repository, the next thing I'm doing is network automation. So I have a bunch of agents that I'm going to move to this LangGraph approach for network automation. This is just my hello world to really figure out the nodes and the graphing and how it all comes together. So network automation stream, maybe not the weekend coming up, because I've got an event I've got to prepare for. This is kind of my last free day for individual messing around work. I've got an event I got to prepare for, but that aside, I will hopefully make some LangGraph solutions for network automation. But again, someone I really respect said, geez, the way you use ChatGPT to code is pretty innovative and unique. Could you mind sharing that? So I thought I'd do a recording and show people just how easy it is. Right? We're just copy pasting API specs into this and getting back the node code, right? Hey, Michael, please reach out. Yeah, please reach out on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the support here today, man. It was really great for you to join. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to update our router node. And it went from 97 to 105 lines, right? Not a big update there. And now our backend node, right? Thank you. Now the NLP exit node. And then our graph. So there's really, right, we found a pretty repeatable approach here. We make a new file for our API. This case is weather. We update the state and include a class or multiple classes for the API, and then we add it to our state class. We update our front end and back end routers, and then we update our graphing and incorporate the node into the graph. That's really all there is to it. We've done multiple APIs. Oh, state of mind, that's cool. Yeah, write a blog post. Make sure you connect with me. Hey, Pedro, no problem. Thanks for joining, everybody. So this is the natural language, and not much is going to change here. I'm just going to let this finish generating. Appreciate everybody's joining. State of mind, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you should blog about that. And that tool, you could probably convert into one of these LangGraphs that you're talking, the tool you're talking about. And then you get all the traces and all the visibility. Okay, so again, we're just waiting for the back end, the natural language node, to finish generating. And then we're going to update our graph. And then we can ask this, how's the weather on Mars? I'm wondering, we can try it. I don't know that I have connections between Mars and the weather here. It would be neat to do a comparison and say, can you tell me what the weather is like on Mars and compare it to the weather in Tokyo or something, right? Which means just in this graph code, I need to make some links between, not in this code, in the graph code, some links between the Mars and the weather, just like the ISS and the weather. So I might mention that. Let's see if we can do that. And then I got to see, before I forget, if router should connect to the exit node. All right, so here's the new natural language code. And now we have our graph. So, all right, let's do it one thing at a time. Can you add the weather on Mars to the graph? I'm going to say similar to the ISS locator, the new weather on Mars agent should also then be chained optionally with the weather on Earth agent for questions like how is the weather on Mars compared to Toronto? But okay, so in terms of the graph, how is the weather in Ottawa? Weather API. Where is the ISS locator? Where is the ISS? And how is the temperature there? ISS weather API. How is the weather on Mars? Weather on Mars agent. And then compare the weather in Dallas to the weather on Mars. Mars weather. All of them exit the graph via the NLP agent. All right, let's see. I wanted to give it a little bit more instruction because I don't want confusion between routes Mars weather before Earth for comparison, prevents ISS and Mars from being confused with Earth weather. All right, now there's a few different use cases to test once we incorporate this one. I got to make sure that nothing's broken. But we'll see if the weather on Mars, so we've incorporated the weather node. Let's take a look at the graph changes here. So we've added the new node here to our nodes. Routing function. Yeah, the new weather node. And then the weather routing function. Is it going to add a new, let's see what it does here. This is adding between ISS and Earth weather. Is there going to be now one between, Earth and Mars comparison? And this links the Earth and the Mars agents. And now we're onto so the entry point is the router node, And now all of our conditional edges. And then finally, the final exit point. Very cool. So from 150 up to 177. All right, so now our Docker's down, Docker up build. Here's our files, the router node, the natural language output, the new weather node for Mars, our new state, and our LangGraph. And everything came up clean, which is a good sign. And all right, let's check out this new graph. So we have our near Earth objects node, our photo of the day node, our ISS locator node, our astronauts in space node. Can I zoom out a little bit? Yeah, let's do that. Very cool. So now we can go from the router node directly to the weather node, or from the router node to Mars and then out, or from the weather node to Mars to the weather node for comparisons. I'm really proud of this. This is really cool. This is really slick. All right, so let's try this. First, let's just try how is the weather on Mars. Submit, and it should hit the Mars node. And we have our natural language answer. The season is currently fall, and temperatures are rather chilly at minus 62.4 degrees Celsius. The winds, the atmospheric pressure, and all the observations. So we just incorporated the Mars node. Here is our tracing for that new API. And it's, the latency is around the same as some of the other space APIs. We have our full waterfall here. So now let's do another trace. Let's do another run here, We're going to start a new thread, and we're going to say, can you please compare the weather in Paris to the weather on Mars? Submit. Okay, hang on. I don't see it. I don't think it went to the right chain here. It didn't go to Paris, or it didn't go to the weather node here after that question. So that might need a little bit of troubleshooting. Here. Why didn't the I know. I think I have to add a next to the weather node. Anyway, I'll troubleshoot that connection between Mars and weather a little bit later. I'm gonna wrap things up. So that's how I use it, and my approach is always the same: working code or API documentation or something that I found or something in my head, and I iterate back and forth with ChatGPT. Read the code, make sure I understand the code. Go back and forth. All this code is going to be on GitHub. I'll push this latest Mars thing up once I figure out the connection between Mars and Earth weather. But stay on the lookout. Watch my previous videos. Subscribe, like, share. All the wonderful things you can do to help promote my work. So thank you. Connect on LinkedIn as well if you're a professional in this field. Just reach